Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your Common Student Assessments, What Legislators Need to Know webinar. All lines have been placed on a listen-only mode, and the floor will be open for your questions and comments following the presentation. If you would like to submit a question at any time during the webinar, you may use the chat box located on the lower right-hand side of your screen. Simply type your message into the box and click on the send button. If you should require assistance throughout the conference, please press *0 on your telephone keypad to reach a live operator. At this time, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to your host, Michelle Ekstrom. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on Common Student Assessments. We hope that this webinar will give you an opportunity to have all of your questions answered about the new assessments by members of the consortia themselves. My name is Michelle Ekstrom, and I'm Education Program Director at the National Conference of State Legislators. I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Today we have joining us Jackie King from the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortia and Jeff Nelhaus from the PARCC Consortia. First, we'll begin with Jackie King. Jackie joined the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium in October 2011 as Director of Higher Education Collaboration. She has primary responsibility for ensuring that higher education institutions are engaged in the process of designing the new assessment system to measure students' college and career readiness and to use the assessments as part of their course placement policies. In fall of 2013, her responsibilities were expanded to include services for state K-12 representatives and strategic communications. She holds a PhD in higher education from the University of Maryland at College Park. I am pleased to have her with us. We know that you all have lots of questions and are anxious to hear a little bit more about where the assessment consortia are at as we are nearing the 2014-2015 school year. And I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Jackie so that she can fill you in on what is going on at Smarter Balanced.
Great. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, everyone, for joining today. Just walk through quickly what I would hope we can cover in the next few minutes is a quick refresher on Smarter Balanced, an update on where we are in terms of the development of the assessment system, and then really want to hone in on 4 key issues that we hear about a lot: technology, student privacy, cost, and sustainability. And I'm looking forward also to taking your questions. So just as a quick reminder, these are the states that are members of the Smarter Balanced Consortium. There are 22 governing states. And our lead procurement state, the state that holds our federal grant, is the state of Washington. So they're our fiscal agent. This is our design. And with all the talk about the assessments, gets really focused on the end-of-year summative assessment, the accountability assessment, but we are building a system that's really designed to support teachers in the classroom throughout the year with interim assessments that are non-secure, that can be administered when districts and schools choose to, and that can be used in flexible ways. And with a digital library of formative assessment, classroom-based assessment practices, and professional development materials to help teachers do a better job of assessing students every day in the classroom and understanding where they're at and what they need to progress in their learning. So Smarter Balanced is really built around the premise that if teachers and schools have good information, they can use that to improve teaching and learning, and that's really what animates the whole system. I always get asked about our funny name, and it is a funny name. There's no doubt about it. And I'm going to pause for just a second to explain it because I think it also provides some good background on how the consortia came together. It was really the genesis of the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium was really state assessment directors who know each other, who talk to each other all the time, see each other at conferences, and would, of course, trade notes and learn from each other, and who wanted to do things differently, wanted to improve the kinds of assessments that they were offering, but oftentimes in their individual states felt constrained in terms of the resources that they had available to them. So when the Race to the Top assessment program came along and the federal government was putting dollars on the table to support the development of assessments, two groups of assessment directors, one in the Pacific Northwest primarily that called themselves Smarter, and one in New England that called itself Balanced, were each putting together proposals. They got together, realized that their proposals had a lot in common and were complementary and would actually be stronger together. And so the Smarter group got together with the Balanced group, and there, from that you get our funny name. But wanted to tell that story so you could understand the genesis. We get a lot of folks assuming we're some kind of a testing company, and really it is a state-led consortium really built from folks in state education agencies who have been tasked for all these years with developing and implementing state assessment programs. So what do we hope to assess? Well, the purpose of this is really the link to college and career readiness. I joined the consortium as Director of Higher Education, which is sort of an unusual title when you think it's a K-12 test. But the goal here is really to assess those skills that we know are necessary for students to succeed in entry-level college courses and in career education and training programs, and to have colleges and universities recognize these student scores so that when students achieve at a certain level on our high school assessment, that they will know and be guaranteed that they can proceed directly into credit-bearing courses at the colleges where they're admitted. And they won't have what happened to them. What happens so often now is that kids do everything they've been told they're supposed to do. They get decent grades, and it's not until they get to college and have to take a placement test that they find out that they didn't learn everything they needed to learn in high school, and that they're going to have to pay and use their financial aid eligibility to take developmental courses that won't count towards their degree. So this link to college readiness and career readiness are really, really important elements of the assessment system. In order to do that, to demonstrate to higher education faculty that these students have the necessary skills, we really have to move away from what standardized tests have traditionally measured, which are the skills on this chart at levels 1 and 2. Estimating, matching, recalling, defining, and really moving towards strategic and extended thinking, where students have to analyze and synthesize, they have to develop logical arguments, they have to critique and explain. These are the kinds of skills that we're really pushing the Smarter Balanced Assessment System to address. Here's just a quick visual on where we are in terms of building the assessment. We started with cognitive labs and small-scale trials in 2012. These were our early tryouts. The cognitive labs are actually one-on-one, a researcher with a student sitting with them as they work through assessment items, having them think out loud while they're working on it, identifying where they have difficulties, where perhaps the interface is confusing. Those were very, very helpful exercises. We also did a pilot test last spring with approximately 650,000 students in about 5,000 schools around the country. We completed development of our field test item bank in December of last year. That's about 20,000 items. Smarter Balanced is a computer adaptive assessment. This is a pretty commonly used model in testing that adjusts the assessment to the performance of the student. So my simple-minded way of thinking about it is the children's game of you're getting colder, you're getting warmer. Student starts the test with questions at about the middle range of difficulty. If they get those questions right, questions get a little bit harder. If they get them wrong, questions get a little bit easier. And it's a dialogue between the student and the test until we're able to zero in on the student's performance level. This has a couple of benefits. One is that you can typically reduce the testing time a little bit because it's a bit more efficient. It also produces a more accurate measurement for students at the top and bottom of the achievement range. Students aren't confronted with a lot of questions that they can't answer or that they find really easy. We are gearing up for a field test that's starting in a little more than 2 weeks on March 18th. That will run through June 6th. The field test will include about over 3 million students in about 20,000 schools around the country. So this is a practice run of the assessment. It will be our final quality check on the items, a really important level of quality assurance. It also gives schools an opportunity to test out their technology and all their test administration procedures, and it provides students with a no-stakes opportunity to really experience the full assessments. We will do something called standard setting, which in real English means setting the cut scores, setting the performance cut scores for the assessment this September. And then we will roll out the full operational assessment in the 14-15 academic year, and that'll be the end of year summative in 2015 and also the interim assessments and the formative assessment digital library. Folks always ask me about testing time, so I threw in this chart. You can see that it ranges from 4 to 4.5 hours in total for English language arts. A half hour of that is a classroom activity that's used to introduce the performance task portion of the assessment. Performance tasks are really an important element of getting at those level 3 and level 4 kinds of skills that I showed earlier. This is a set of activities organized around a common theme that will ask students to apply a range of skills and knowledge. An ELA, this is where they would write an extended essay and demonstrate research skills. In mathematics, they're going to be applying a lot of different skills and knowledge in order to solve a fairly complex problem. So we do a short activity in the classroom to help them get ready to do that, orient them to the theme that kind of unites all the questions in the performance task. And you can see math there, the total testing time with the in-class activity ranges from 3 to 4 hours depending on the student grade. We've got a lot of resources available to help schools prepare. We've had a practice test available since May of last year. We now have a training test as well, and a lot of additional online resources that schools are taking advantage of to get themselves ready to administer our field test starting on the 18th of March. I want to move on to address some of these key issues. We know technology is a big concern. We've had an online readiness tool that was developed with PARCC to allow schools and districts to evaluate their readiness. That's been available now for, well over a year, probably going on 2 years. We've had our standards out for the kinds of new and existing hardware and operating systems that are necessary. We've really tried to build these assessments so they will work on the computers and on the software that exists in schools today. So, for example, you can run the assessment system on Windows XP, which is a pretty old operating system. And on any computer that will run in Windows XP. At the other end of the spectrum, we've also designed these assessments so they will work on tablets and some of the newer kinds of devices that are appearing in schools. Really important to understand that schools do not need one-to-one computers to do these assessments. One of the benefits of a computer adaptive assessment is that you can test over a longer period of time. Since every kid's test is different. The test security concerns are less than they otherwise would be. A benefit of any computer-based test, you don't have test papers sitting around, so you can spread out the testing over a longer period of time, and in so doing, you can take full advantage of the computer resources that you do have without needing a lot of additional machines. So we estimate that a school with 600 students can test in a single 30 computer lab in our testing window. The biggest issue really is not hardware and software; it's bandwidth for schools, and so we have a readiness calculator that allows schools to calculate how many students they could test simultaneously given their bandwidth and the other normal demand on their bandwidth during a school day. So that's been a really useful tool. And, of course, the field test will give schools an opportunity to try that out in real time. We recognize, though, that not every school is going to be ready right away, and so we're offering a paper and pencil option for the first 3 years of operational testing. Another concern that comes up a lot is student privacy, and we know that this is something that I'm a parent. I can tell you I worry about it a lot in this internet age. We are taking a number of measures to safeguard student privacy and data security. Under Smarter Balanced, states retain complete control of their student data. We are not going to share student-level information with the federal government. We're not going to sell student data. We will only share information with a third party, such as a researcher, if a state directed us to do so. States completely retain control of their data. And the reporting requirements for No Child Left Behind are completely unaffected by participation in the consortia. The PARCC and Smarter Balanced chiefs recently affirmed this in a letter to Secretary Duncan. Nothing changes about what states have to report to the federal government. Our states have, for the field test and then for operational testing, our states are entering into data privacy and security agreements to make sure that all student data are safeguarded. And I'm happy to answer more questions about that if you have them. This is a list of the data that we will collect. We do need certain pieces of information to do the research and analysis that's necessary to make sure that the assessment system is performing up to snuff, and to administer, and essentially to administer the assessment. So we will need a few pieces of data. We will not require states to report student name or date of birth. They can do that if they choose to, if they want us to handle producing student-level score reports. But if the state would prefer to handle that itself, then we do not need that information and would not require it. Another big issue is cost. Just to put it in perspective, and obviously every dollar in state budgets is precious and has about 20 different uses that are valid and important that it could be put to. So, but nonetheless, it's important to remember that what states are spending now, which is an average of about $35 a student, is equivalent to 0.3% of per pupil expenditures. So assessment costs are a small fraction of total spending on K-12 education. There's two components of the cost for Smarter Balanced. There's a membership fee for the consortium to maintain and improve the assessment system under the governance of the member states, and with member states continuing to make all major design, policy, and financial decisions. And then our cost estimate also includes our cost includes an estimate for the costs that states will incur to administer the assessments. Smarter Balanced is not planning to become the test administrator. We will concentrate on continued development of the assessment, continued improvement of it, and but not on all of the administrative services. States will continue to procure those services in the ways that they always have, either handling it in-house or through arrangements with vendors with whom they may have existing relationships. This was a decision that we made to try to maintain a very small footprint for Smarter Balanced as an organization, and to provide states with as much flexibility as possible to manage the administration of the assessments in the way that best suits each individual state. So just to show you those dollars really quickly, this is how the dollars add up then. The membership fee that's a hard number. That's what the number will be. The member-managed activities is an estimate. Each state will be managing, scoring, hosting of the assessments, the actual locating them and hosting them on computer servers, training, reporting. Those elements that states will be managing, each one will make their own decisions about that, and so, of course, we can't give a single hard and fast number. But these are our best estimates of what those state costs will be. And you can see that it works out to about $22.50 in total for the end-of-year assessment only, and about $27.30 for the full package that includes the interim and formative assessment features. And then the last topic is what happens after September 30th of this year. The federal grant that funds the consortium ends on September 30th. And with states rolling out the first operational assessment that academic year, and with colleges looking to evaluate whether or not to recognize student scores, it doesn't seem like a good time for us to just hang up the close sign. We really need to maintain a way for states to continue to work together to govern the assessment system moving forward. So we are working on an arrangement with the UCLA Graduate School of Education to serve as a host and a partner for sustaining Smarter Balanced. We would become a program within the Graduate School of Education at UCLA. This would provide us with a lot of the back office kinds of support that we need, and also give us access to a lot of good minds and able folks in terms of graduate students and faculty at UCLA who can work with us on the continued development of the assessment system. Some key principles that we are working into are the arrangements that we are making with UCLA. We will retain the state-led governance structure of the consortium. The structure that we have now with states voting on all policy matters will be retained, with only some very minor changes. States will continue to have shared ownership of the item pool, the digital library, and any other intellectual property. And as I've explained before, we'll maintain the services, limited set of services to maintain the quality and comparability of the assessment, and states and their vendors will manage test administration. So I have said a handful. A few key takeaways to keep in mind. We are on track to deliver a complete assessment system in 14-15 on time and on budget. We're taking steps to address some key state concerns regarding technology and student privacy, and we have a sustainability plan that in place that will keep states in the driver's seat on assessment design, policy, and cost. And with that, I'll close with just a few resources. If you want to kind of stay apprised of what's going on with the consortium, of course, we have a pretty comprehensive website, a regular newsletter that we send out, and who doesn't tweet these days? That's important. I'm also welcome questions from the group now, but also questions from folks via email or phone, and I'm happy to provide my contact information. Maybe we can do that right at the end of the webinar.
Thanks, Jackie. That was great. I see that we do have a question about the similarities between Smarter Balanced and PARCC. So I think we will hold that question to the end because I think some of that will become apparent as Jeff presents regarding PARCC, and then if there's any additional clarification that's needed, we can handle that at the very end. Just a reminder that you can definitely type in your questions as the speakers are speaking, and then we will visit those at the end of the webinar. We'll be sure that we get all of your questions answered. So let's go ahead and continue on, and let's hear from PARCC. Jeff Nelhaus is with us from PARCC. PARCC is the project management partner for the PARCC Consortium, which is one of the two state consortia that received Race to the Top grants, the other being Smarter Balanced, of course. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry from the University of Massachusetts and a Master of Science in Science Teaching from Antioch Graduate School of Education and a Master's in Education in Administration, Policy, and Planning from Harvard Graduate School of Education. Right now, Jeff serves as the Director of Policy, Research, and Design at PARCC. So we will have Jeff tell us a little bit more about the PARCC Assessment Consortia.
Great. Michelle, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the Council for giving us an opportunity, both Jackie and I, to present about our consortia this afternoon. You'll see there are some similarities between our two consortia and some differences, and perhaps from my presentation you can begin to discern some of the similarities and differences. I hope to provide you some background about the PARCC Consortia and the design of our assessment system. I want to briefly summarize some of the highlights of what we've accomplished to date, provide you with some details about this spring's field test, and finally describe our schedule for moving toward full implementation of the test next year. So first, a few words about the consortium itself. We are currently comprised of 16 states plus the District of Columbia, in which there are approximately 11 million students in grades 3 through 11. Those are the tested grades in which the PARCC assessments will be administered. PARCC, like Smarter Balanced, is a state-led initiative. The chief state school offices from the states serve on the consortium's governing board. I formerly was working with the Massachusetts Department of Education, and my old boss, Commissioner Mitchell Chester, is the chair of the PARCC governing board. That governing board meets in person on a quarterly basis and monthly on a conference call, and has an executive committee made up of the chiefs from the states of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Colorado, New Mexico, Tennessee, and Maryland, and they have a weekly conference call. So this is all to say that the education leaders in the various PARCC states have a huge stake in the consortium and are very committed to working on a very frequent basis on the various policy issues that arise in implementing this new assessment program. Currently, the fiscal agent for the consortium is Maryland, and as Washington is for Smarter Balanced, the Race to the Top funds, federal funds, that is being used to procure the various services for the consortium, for bringing the states together, is channeled through the state of Maryland. PARCC Incorporated is the that's the organization I currently work for. We're the project management partner for the consortium, and our mission is to work on behalf of the member states to facilitate the state involvement, to help with procurement, to manage contracts, and to coordinate and integrate vendors' day-to-day operations. So that gives you a picture. If you look at the map, the state of Pennsylvania is in a lighter color there. They're a member of the consortium, but they're not a governing state at this time, and they're the only state that will not be participating in our field test this spring. So let me go to the next slide here. To understand the design of our assessment system, I think it's important to first understand what are the priorities and purposes that the assessment system is attempting to address. So there are lots of different purposes assessment systems address. I've highlighted 5 here, which I think are the most important. First of all, our mission is to develop a very high-quality student assessment system that's designed to measure college and career-ready standards. But more specifically, the system, as a Smarter Balanced system, is to provide information and tools to support effective instruction. And this is where I think both of our systems are going to address issues around accountability. So we're generating data that is reliable and timely for a range of accountability uses, including school accountability, district-level accountability, educator effectiveness systems, and student accountability systems. A third priority is to report whether students are college and career ready or on track to be ready. And Jackie explained that students in both of the consortia that earn a college and career ready determination, we're working out arrangements with our state colleges and universities for those students who are accepted and have earned a college and career ready determination, that they're able to matriculate directly into entry-level credit-bearing college courses. A fourth priority for this consortium is to report comparable data across schools, districts, and states. And this was a very high priority for the governors who signed on to participating in the consortia. I think there was one of the problems we've had in the past is that states were holding different standards, reporting different numbers of students proficient, and it was creating a lot of confusion in the country. And by having common assessments, we can have results that can be comparable. Finally, and both of the consortia are doing this, is using technology for a variety of purposes, including, most importantly, engaging students in a 21st century learning environment, and then also for creating cost efficiencies in all phases of the testing system, from test development, the administration of the tests, the scoring of the tests, and the reporting of the tests. So it's just important to keep these priorities in mind as I go now here to just to try to give you a quick overview of the design of the PARCC assessment system. Just bear with me a second. So this slide here illustrates the system. The system is comprised of a number of components as depicted by the little computer screens you see on the slide here. The 2 computer screens on the left of the screen depict the formative assessment components. They are optional. States will, I think this is a similarity between Smarter Balanced and PARCC in that we have required components and some optional components. These optional components can be used throughout the school year and are designed to address that first priority I spoke about, which is to support effective instruction, tools that can be used throughout the school year in the instructional process. Formative assessments are typically not used for accountability purposes, so they're not designed to report comparable data across schools and districts and students. The 2 components you see on the right of the screen show what we refer to as our summative assessment components. There are 2 summative components in PARCC. One is called the computer-based component, and the other the end-of-year component. And the summative components address all of the I would say that the summative components address all of the priorities previously mentioned and are the assessments upon which student performance results will be generated, and then those students' results will be aggregated to report school, district, and state results. There's one component there, the speaking and listening assessment, that's under development, and it will eventually be phased in and become part of the summative assessment system. Okay, I just want to give you a little bit more information about each of those, about the summative assessments and the formative assessments, which are the heart of the program. In terms of the summative assessments, you can see in this slide that the English language arts / literacy performance-based component, that's in the top left-hand box there, is focused on assessing students' ability to write, and in particular their ability to incorporate evidence from sources in their writing. while if you just move to the right a little bit, you'll see that in the end-of-year component, the English Language Arts test is focused on reading comprehension of both literary and informational texts. And in those texts in grades 6 through 11, in terms of the informational texts, will include historical texts, scientific, and technical texts. Dropping down to the math PBA and the math EOI, the math performance-based component will focus on those extended multi-step problems that require mathematical reasoning and solving real-world problems, while the end-of-year component will focus on concepts, fluency, and short applications. And so it's the results from both of these components that are combined to create the student's overall score. So we have a lot of information being put together to provide an overall score for students. Just a little bit more information on the formative components. The diagnostic assessments on the left will be created for students in grades 2 through 8, and they'll focus on reading, writing, and mathematics. The purpose of the diagnostic tools is to pinpoint students' strengths and weaknesses. And as such, they will be computer-based and computer adaptive. Here is where our diagnostic assessments use a model that's similar to SBAC's summative assessments in that the tests will be both computer-based and computer adaptive. The mid-year assessments on the right will take the form of modules or testlets that span grades 3 through 11. They will be both paper-based and computer-based, and they'll serve various purposes. Schools will have the opportunity to use these for classroom assignments, to use them for benchmark assessments, and since the design of the mid-year assessments will be very similar to the design of our performance-based assessments under the summative system, they can be used to help students prepare for the summative assessment. So that's just a little bit more information about the design of the system itself. This will move over here. I just want to quickly summarize some of the accomplishments of the PARCC Consortium to date. The point of this slide is to show that the work of both consortia has been very wide-ranging, including state engagement of both our K-12 and higher education partners, test development. Both consortia have done a tremendous amount of work in developing test items for its new assessments, policy development. Jackie talked about the work that's been done to support technology readiness and research. Research is also a large part of each of our assessment program. With respect to policy, as Jackie described, PARCC has also adopted a data privacy policy very similar to Smarter Balance's policy, and I think we actually worked together and drew from each other's thinking on data privacy, knowing that's a very important issue. And like the Smarter Balanced Consortia, there'll be very strict requirements around maintaining the security of personally identifiable information. So this just is to illustrate that what both consortia are doing are much more than just building a test. We're doing research. We're bringing multiple states together to develop policy where there's been very disparate policy before. Both consortia have a college and career-ready determination policy. We have data privacy policies. We're working together to have similar test accommodation policies and so on and so forth. So while we are different in some ways, we are similar in others. Just want to talk a little bit more about the field tests that we'll be administering this spring. Just give me a minute. I want to get a little water. So the field tests, just a word about the field tests. We like to describe the field tests as not a test of the students themselves, but a test of the test items. And the field tests also give us an opportunity to conduct a number of important research studies that will inform the construction of the operational assessments and the way we analyze the results and the way we report the results. So just to give you an idea of some of the research, in addition to getting that important item-level data that will help us evaluate the quality of items, we'll be conducting research to, for example, compare the results of paper-administered tests and computer-administered tests to know whether the results of those tests are interchangeable or whether they'll really have to be reported out separately. And this is a big concern right now. As you can see, both consortia will be phasing in the full use of computers over time, so there will be a period over the next couple of years where some schools will be taking the tests on paper, others on computer, and it will raise questions about the comparability of those results, and we're looking into that matter. We're also, as part of our field test, there are questionnaires for the test administrators, and there are questionnaires for the students themselves to help us. Basically, the questions will be designed towards getting information to them about the clarity of the test, the clarity of the directions, and helping us improve the test administration procedures for next year. So, and then I just want to emphasize, and this is true for both consortia, that the field tests are not about getting results for students or schools or districts. It's about getting this other information from which we can build strong tests for the first year of operation in 14-15. Oops. So in terms of the field tests, we have 14 states plus the District of Columbia participating in the field tests. In those states, we'll be involving over 1 million students in nearly 16,000 schools. And the way we've sampled on the field test was to minimize the testing burden on schools this spring that are also implementing their existing state testing program. So in any school that was selected to participate in the PARCC field test, we're only including 1 to 3 classrooms in that school. So, and additionally, students participating in the field test will only be taking a field test in one content area and in one of the components of the content area. So the amount of testing time for the field test will not exceed 3 hours, and that will be over anywhere from 1 to 3 days. This next slide shows the schedule or the window for the field test this spring. So the window for the performance-based field test begins on March 24th and ends on April 11th, and the window for the end-of-year field test begins on May 5th and ends on June 6th. So the relatively long windows are designed to provide schools with as much time as possible in scheduling the field tests so they can schedule them around other planned events in the school, understanding that this year is a year in which states are also administering their existing state tests. The relatively long windows are there to allow them to schedule around those tests. This slide also indicates the kind of supports we have been providing schools and districts the past few months to prepare for the field tests. I think Jackie showed a similar slide where there have been regional workshops, on-site visits, manuals and narrated PowerPoints presented to local educators. We have a call center. We have various kind of tools that allow them to check their computer systems and actually conduct a dress rehearsal for the field test in terms of knowing whether or not the technology in their schools is adequate to handle the computer-based testing. This slide also shows that we'll be releasing practice tests this spring and the findings of the research studies that we're conducting later this summer. Just moving on, I want to say a few more words about the kind of supports we're providing both to educators and students to get ready for the field tests and really for the operational tests next year. We have released sample items. They're available now, and you can see the link that you could go to if you wanted to look at some of the sample items, try them for yourselves. There's also practice tests coming out this spring, and the purpose of the practice tests is to give opportunities to schools that weren't selected for the field tests a similar opportunity to participate in a PARCC-like assessment so they can also feel prepared for implementing the full test next year. Both the sample items in the practice tests are designed to help familiarize students with the item types and with the technology platform before taking the full test in spring of 2015. Moving on to this next slide here. This is just another calendar to show the major events that will be taking place as we move towards full implementation of the tests in the spring of 2015. But you can see this year, students will be taking the field tests. We're releasing practice tests. Research findings will be reported this summer. PARCC will be constructing its operational assessments this summer and fall. The mid-year assessments will be available next winter, at which time students will begin taking the operational tests late in winter and early spring. We also will be setting performance level cut scores next summer and reporting out the results of the first operational assessments at the late in the summer of 2015. The diagnostic assessments will be available in the fall of 2015, and for those students who earn a college and career-ready determination in the spring of 2015, those students will be entering college in the fall of 2016, and if they've earned that determination, they'll be able to use that to matriculate into those college credit-bearing courses. I just wanted to share with you, Michelle, I hope everyone is getting this particular presentation because they'll have links to all the materials that have been developed by PARCC to date. This is a list of instructional resources that we've developed and are available to the public and local educators on the next slide. These are the resources that we have developed to help prepare educators and students for the field test this spring. So all of these materials are available on our website or linked from our website to what's called the PARCC Pearson website, where the materials, where at least the online materials, the computer-based testing materials, sample items are available. And that's about it. I just want to say in conclusion that the chiefs in our state, the educators in our state, are committed to developing a very high-quality assessment program. We're looking to develop tests that are worth taking, made up of text worth reading and problems worth solving. Our tests are going to be full of the kinds of questions that great teachers routinely ask their students. And the involvement of our local educators has been critical and has been greatly appreciated. And that's my presentation for this afternoon, Michelle.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
Sure.
Just as a reminder, you are able to type your questions into the chat box, and I will read them to the presenters to get your questions answered. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and go into the Q&A portion. We have a number of questions here. First, one question that we get a lot is whether or not states are able to customize their assessments, given the fact that they are able to customize a bit their standards. They're wondering if they might be able to add questions that are specific to their state, or even cut back the number of questions in total, to cut back a little bit on the number of hours that the test will require. Can both of you address that with regard to your work?
Sure. So I'll start, and then maybe Jeff, do you want to jump in?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the big benefits of the consortia is that the results of these assessments will be comparable across states. So you will be able to look from your state to your neighboring states and see how your students are performing relative to other states. For the summative end-of-year assessment, if a state were to, say, add on a significant, additional portion, or want to cut back a significant portion, you would lose that comparability in the assessment system. The test administration platform that Smarter Balanced has developed is an open source platform that will allow states to use that platform if they choose for other assessments that they give. So say, for example, for a social science assessment, it would have the same look and feel as the Smarter Balanced assessment. If a state wanted to, say, add on some additional portion in English and math, they could use that same assessment platform to do that, but I think they would want to do it as an addendum to the existing assessment, because if you were to integrate it in some kind of way, or want the answers to those questions merged into the score on the Smarter Balanced assessment, you would lose that comparability across states. So that would be a pretty significant trade-off.
Yeah, and I would just agree with Jackie there. The whole idea behind the assessments and the common assessments is to get comparable results. And once you start cutting back the number of questions or adding on questions, and certainly I don't think states want to add on questions. They're most concerned about testing time. So I think that the agreement of the states that are members of the consortium that they're going to administer comparable tests, common tests with common policies, so results can be comparable.
Where you can have some customization is with the interim assessments.
Right.
Those you can pick and choose what you want to administer, when you administer it. We've also given the states the option for in our case, for end-of-course testing. If they wanted to design end-of-course tests based around their curricula, they could do that, say for grades 9 and 10 in our case, using items out of the Smarter Balanced item bank.
Great. Thank you for addressing that. Another question that comes up quite a bit is there's an option to participate either in the summative piece, or you can buy the entire assessment package that includes formative and interim assessments. Can you address whether it's a state role to determine that, or if districts, for example, if a state would decide to only use the summative assessment portion, could a district come to you and provide extra funding to be able to use that for their assessment system?
Sure, we get that question all the time. We will not be set up to bill the thousands of districts out there around the country. So if a state wanted to work out an arrangements with its districts whereby the districts essentially paid the state and then the state paid us, we could work that out. But it would be a big increase in our administrative overhead, and therefore in our the cost that we would have to charge to other states if we started to offer the option of working directly with districts. It would dramatically increase the amount of staff that we would have to have, and we've been told very clearly by our member states that they want us to remain very leanly staffed.
So for PARCC, this is still a policy under discussion. We are looking, as a goal to for the interim, for our diagnostic assessments, for our mid-year assessments, for districts, if states are not purchasing those for all of the districts in their state, that there's an opportunity for individual districts to get access to those materials. But I agree with Jackie. It all comes down to some administrative, operational challenges in doing that. But we're hoping that we can make these tools for classroom assessments pretty widely available.
Great, thanks. We have another question. Is there a way to know where a student is at in case the testing process becomes interrupted? Would the student be able to sign in again and proceed where they left off regardless of the computer they were on?
In general, yes. If there were, for some reason, some kind of interruption, say a power outage, and the student might lose the immediate question they were working on, they would lose it if they hadn't submitted it, they hadn't said, I'm done with this question. But the rest of what they had done would have been saved, and so they could log back in and resume their testing experience.
Yeah, and our platform will provide the same functionality. Certainly the students need to submit their answers, and once that they've done that, it's captured and maintained, and if something happens that interrupts their experience, they can come back at another time and complete it. I also want to say something about the, this issue about bandwidth, and I know this has been a concern of everyone, and PARCC is addressing that particular issue through a procedure called proctor caching, and Smarter Balanced may be doing this as well, but basically what it allows a school to do, or a district, is to download the entire assessment to a local server, administer it over the local area network, and then when everything's done, basically transmit that material back to the testing company. And what that does is minimize the amount of time that any students are directly on the internet where there can be interruptions. So we're looking at ways of addressing those kind of technical issues that people are rightly concerned about, that could disrupt the testing experience.
We aren't using that procedure with the computer adaptive assessment. That doesn't work quite as well, but we're maintaining a really small bandwidth footprint for individual test items, 20 kilobytes per student. And if you were to look at your inbox on your email right now, you would see that most of the items in your inbox, the email messages, are more than 20 kilobytes. So this is a small little slim footprint. Should explain that these will not look like a kid's video game because of that. The software doesn't look real fancy, but that was done on purpose to make sure that the assessment meets its purpose, but doesn't create an unnecessary load on what we know are limited bandwidth resources in a lot of schools.
Okay,
go ahead.
We have just a couple more questions that I'd like to get to real quickly. Will any personally identifiable information be accessible to the consortia or its vendors?
Only if a state authorizes it, and in that case, a state would enter into a data privacy agreement. So, for example, if a state is contracting with a vendor to maintain its data warehouse or to do its reporting, and that's going to include reporting to individual students, then that vendor would have access to that personally identifiable information, and the state would enter into a data privacy agreement to govern the use of that data.
Right.
But states remain in the driver's seat for all questions with regard to their data. I will note, this is not the case with all assessments. With some assessments, the vendor retains control of the data. That is not the case with the consortia assessments.
Yeah, and I don't know any states where the vendor actually has control of the data to the extent that they can share it with anyone without the permission of the state. And so the states own the data. The vendors, if they have access to any personally identifiable information, which is sometimes required to report out results by race, by gender, so on and so forth, they need that data to do that, but it's not to be shared in any other way, not to be given to any other third party without the explicit permission of the state, and that's rarely given out. So I don't think that you're going to find that because there are consortia now that there's any greater issues around confidentiality and privacy. All of those rules are going to be kept in place.
Absolutely.
Okay, and one last question. What were the costs to develop the test for PARCC and Smarter Balanced?
So we were, our federal grant that funded the consortia has funded the consortium for this 4-year research and development period was about $175 million, and then we've gotten several $1 million of additional funding from private foundations.
Right, and we got a similar amount of grant funding and some private funding as well. So that money has been, been used to help each of the consortia design their assessments, do all of the item development for the assessments, now doing the field testing, in some cases building the technology platforms to administer, score, and report the assessments. So it's really gone for, a whole range of uses, engaging the states and so on and so forth.
I actually have one more question that's come in that I'd like to get to real quickly. Is it the intent that if a high school student meets a certain test score, that student must be placed in a freshman level course for credit and cannot be further evaluated to determine if remedial replacement might be in the student's best interest? If so, will this apply or be utilized by public or private institutions of education?
So
I think the question...
Sure. The answer to the first question is yes. That is exactly the intent. In some cases, the student and the consortia's policies are a little bit different in this regard. In some cases, the student may have additional requirements that they need to meet in the 12th grade. For example, mathematics, student may need to take and pass a sequential math course in the 12th grade because we wouldn't want them to have their skills deteriorate. Colleges and universities will be making decisions beginning next year about participation. They'll be looking at what our cut scores are. They'll be looking at the assessments. They'll be looking at the achievement level, what the achievement levels mean and the descriptions that have been created of those achievement levels in terms of the academic content. And they'll be making decisions about whether or not they want to participate. We think that'll start primarily with public institutions because that's who we've really been working with most closely. And then likely would spread from there to private institutions. And whether or not this would be a kind of a state-level decision or a system-level decision really will depend in each state on the governance system for higher education. In some states, this might be a statewide decision, and in other states, each individual campus would make that call. Really just depends on the governance structure in any given state.
So the only thing I would add here, if the student were to earn their college and career ready determination mathematics, and they did so at an early grade, because some students are taking Algebra 2 and more advanced math courses as early as the 9th and 10th grade, then there could be a stipulation that in order to for that to be honored, that they have to continue to take coursework in mathematics after they've earned the determination. But other than that, I think that's the idea. If once a student earns this determination, that colleges would recognize it and allow students to matriculate into those credit-bearing courses automatically without remediation.
As long as it's subject to their being admitted, of course. This doesn't take the place of a college admissions process.
Exactly.
Thank you both so much. I know that this has been really helpful both for me and for the legislators and legislative staff who are able to join us. I did want to remind everyone that this is archived, and so we will send out the link to the archive within a few days, and you can share it with your colleagues who were not able to join us for the webinar, or to use it to refer back to any information that was included in the webinar. As you can see, my contact information is listed there. If you have any questions about this topic, we are well positioned to help you, and obviously always happy to help you get your questions answered and connect you to folks at the consortia or other experts who might be able to answer your questions in more detail. This is the conclusion of the webinar, and we appreciate your participation.